Hello and welcome to another episode of Emergence of Being, where we're talking all about relationships, which is not just with people, it's also with things like technology. We were realizing this morning that our relationship with technology sometimes needs some work, but we're here.
We're here. Sorry,
And
guys.
we're talking today about purpose of relationships, and mostly where we really like to have the conversation go is wherever you have questions, comments, suggestions, and let it flow naturally with whatever would be a greatest contribution in your life.
Yes.
And I hear myself in the background. Oh no.
Oh no. So we were staticky
It's
before.
okay.
So with relationships, this is just kind of what came to me. So we have all this. Thanks, Ray. It's not just about the relationships you have. We've been talking a lot about relationships and partnerships between your significant other, so to speak. But relationships of any sort, no matter what they are there to help you learn something. So every single person you have any kind of relationship with has some sort of lesson for you, and it's up to you to figure that out. So we can't hear you, Hank, or I can't hear you.
I was muted because I thought anyway, it doesn't matter. One of the things I was watching a video from Bashar today, who's the channel that I really like, and someone was asking him about trust, that they had somebody that broke their trust or whatever, and how do they learn to trust again? And he stopped him right there, and he's like, well, you need to trust yourself and trust that they gave you exactly the experience that you needed to better define who you were going to be. And so trust that people will show up as their authentic selves. And all you have to do is trust that you will do your best to take whatever shows up and choose to do with it something that's going to create more or positivity in your life. Because everything, the way Bashar talks about, is everything that shows up is neutral. Life inherently, the way that he describes it, has no meaning. It's up to us to decide how we're going to use everything that shows up. And that's really the great lesson, is how can I use the minutia, perceived minutia, that shows up in my life to actually grow flowers and grow blessings and grow things that I actually want to experience, versus, oh man, now I'm going to play the victim and I just gave away my power. And now my whole life is I can't trust anyone. So I'm just going to sit at home and do nothing. I'm kind of exaggerating that, but you get it.
Yeah, we see relationships on a very superficial level because we have not gained the awareness in life of what the relationship is, what it's there for, what are we extracting out of it, what are we seeing it, what lesson is it teaching us. So I think we talked about this either last episode or the episode prior, but people often mirror to you a piece of you that you need to learn, or they match your energy. Relationships are very intricate. So if you're just, as we normal humans do, we see it as, oh, this person's pissing me off, and again, or we're in a relationship with a significant other and viewing women. There's something I read this morning on somebody's Instagram reel that all these little tidbits on relationships, and you need to have two partners to have two incomes and all this. I'm like, okay, so we're not really seeing relationships on the intricate level of what is it mirroring to us, what is it showing to us, because that person has a soul, and that person's soul is trying to teach your soul something. But what are you extracting out of that versus, I'm paying for everything, I'm doing everything, this person's not appreciating me, yada yada yada, all these things that show up. That's relationships at a very superficial level. What is the depth of the relationship, and what are you there to learn from it? Where is there to help you, where is it there to help you grow? Relationships are essentially there to help us evolve and to help us grow on many levels.
Yeah. And I just had something and then went poof.
Dragon.
Proof the magic dragon. But if you have questions, comments, anything like that. But I would say that one thing that we do with relationships is that you model what you think a relationship should be. And so like everything you were just talking about, like you need the things called two incomes and all these things. We have been conditioned that way. There was that whole push for everybody having a nuclear family where it used to be generational and you would have like three generations of family living in one house, and all that changed. And the more you separate people, the more you have duplicated expenses and all that. But there's whole other ways to think about things. But just take a moment to sit with any relationship or friendship and really ask, well, where did I get my definitions from? Because when you are growing up and you're going to high school and you're doing all these things, we have like this idea of what things should look like. But imagine if you didn't know and you approached each relationship as a blank slate, like a whiteboard. There's no rules. And
Yeah.
like really, what is the possibilities that a relationship could be if you weren't stuck into the idea of nuclear family, mononormity, uh, all everything like that you know, that we're already having a framework that we're building it in, but there's no framework you have to build it in.
Right. So this is kind of what I have been really pondering is the framework, the box, as I say, of relationships that we learned eons ago is what evolution brought out at that time. However, we are moving that framework into today's society, and today's society is very, very different. Women are now making more money. That framework is not working so well in today's society because everything is flipped. Women are now CEOs. Women are now the breadwinners of the family. There's, I think, more equality than there was way back when women sat at home and didn't do anything. And was there, unhappiness then? I don't know. We'd have to ask somebody then. But the framework was much different then. The thoughts around relationships and a marriage were much different then than they are now. However, there's this hodgepodge of, I think, a framework that we're trying to navigate now that just isn't working, and it's very evident. And so there's turmoil everywhere. But yeah, that's our definition. And if we didn't have a definition of anything, I wonder how we would act.
Well, if you look into the history of humanity, they did village living, and like you know, some things are just done out of survival. You know, like back when we still had to worry about getting eaten by things, like you would have a community and you'd have, you know, you would live in a village and things like that. And as time evolves, it's like how to become your individual self, but not like being totally separate, being your individual self amongst all the other people, places, and things. Where like when we go and we start being authentic, all of a sudden because we've been conditioned to empower other people's judgments over our own knowing. Like when your child acts out, they're being 100% themselves. They're on the ground crying, rolling around, and the parents go like, oh my God, look at all the people looking at me. But in that moment, like that is the authentic person, but we're taught everybody's staring, stop being you.
Yes. Oh my
Right.
gosh.
So now like we're like, okay, now we want to be ourselves, but we are trying to uncondition ourselves to empower all these other people's points of view about us. And it is this delicate balance because you also don't want to infringe on somebody else's bubble, you know. So how are you authentic to bend without breaking so you're not like just in someone else's face, because you're not like trying to convert everybody to be versions of you or whatever. So it's like this delicate thing where you can be in this bubble of respect for everybody else's authenticity without sacrificing your authenticity. And that's like where I think we're just humanity's like really trying to balance out. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships, it's everything, even in the workplace and all these things. Like how can you be who you need to be and be respectful for one another, but also an allowance of one another. It's a quite a journey.
It is. I love that point about that kid screaming on the floor does not give a crap what anybody's thinking. They're not going, oh my, I better not scream because everybody's going to
Until
look
mom and
at me.
dad shame them. Once mom and dad shame them, then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, these two beings that feed me and are responsible for me being alive and taking care of everything that I need just said, don't do that. I better not do that because I don't want that to be taken away. Like I'm projecting there like that. I don't know if that's what the kid's actually thinking, but at this point you get like this interrupt where, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be. And now there's consequences and there's threats. And now all of a sudden dad's picking me up off the ground and carrying me off and it's hurting my arm or whatever the case is. Now all of a sudden there was like this thing that happened where now the child is, whoa, maybe I can't be me. And it, I'm simplifying it, but that's kind of the evolution of it. At least
Yeah,
in this culture. It could be very different in other cultures. I'm just
right,
speaking to the culture I grew up in.
right. And here in America, I'm sure things are much different than they are in other countries, for sure. I think we are here in at least in America. I think we are in a time that's very interesting. Everybody's trying to find themselves, and their authenticity is bouncing like a pendulum all over the place. I'm seeing things that I have not seen before, and it's kind of from our extremes. But I think people are truly trying. At the bottom of it all, I think people are truly trying to find themselves and who they really are, and being their authentic selves. It's just done in a very special way, I guess. How
Yeah.
else to say that? Yeah.
And
So
we have, oh, go ahead.
no, that was
I was
it.
just going to say
Yeah.
we have Magic Mike saying good morning. He has quite a lot of things saying, "Yep, we're live," and be present, don't relate. And then we have someone saying that zero sum is so ingrained in our culture. Though more support, love, resources for someone else means less for me, which just kind of comes to like the idea from Neil Donald Walsh, like the illusions that 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 there isn't enough, that insufficiency exists, and with that mindset that if you suddenly like the zero sum game, like how many people are living paycheck to paycheck, like we've talked about on some of our financial discussions, that like if I give there's not enough, so I have to hang on to what I have, or I can't give, and or it's wrong to take something if it could go to somebody else. That's a huge one. Like how many times has someone offered you like, oh no, someone else could use it more than me? You just turn down abundance from the universe. And so, but we're really taught like, take as minimum as possible, which is a whole nother subtopic potentially. Zero sum. That is like how many people you spend every single penny of your paycheck or more, and you're running a deficit, like our country. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's a big example right there
Like,
of like,
whole other
we're a
conversation.
debt-based economy. It's even on our bill, and for all debts, public and private, even our regular currency is all about being in debt.
I was listening to another podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joseph Murphy's work, but he was talking about how when you withhold from somebody else, you withhold from yourself. So he gave this example of this guy that wanted to make, we're on a tangent here, but wanted to make more money, but wasn't making more money yet. When he evaluated the situation, the guy was in I don't know, divorce or something. And if he made more money, he would have to give his wife more. So he was like, so unconsciously, he wasn't making more for the sheer fact of if he makes more, he has to give more. And the whole premise of that, though, was if you can give with joy, and this is what people have a challenging time, even in relationships, if you can give with joy, give away money with joy, it will come back to you. But when you withhold anywhere, like if you don't want to pay your bills, if you don't want to, a situation like that where you like, oh, I don't want to pay, it's mine, then you are withholding money from yourself, because we technically all are in collective consciousness. So be aware of those sorts of things. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And I don't look at that as a tangent at all. The purpose of relationships, that's also your relationships with things. Like it's relationship with money, it's relationship with the electric company, it's a relationship with all these things. And like, really, what is your relationship with money? We've been taught that it's scarce. We've been taught that you have to work hard, where maybe you don't, maybe you don't. We've been taught that, what's the other one? Money is the root of all evil. Oh my God, if I have money, I'm going to turn evil. Like money doesn't grow on trees. Like there's all kinds of things. Rich people aren't happy. That was one that I personally had. If you have money, you can either be rich or you can be happy. So who wouldn't choose happiness over having money, right? But like what things are ingrained in us in relationships in general, especially money, of how to be in relationship to it, or keep it in check. You don't want too much money, because if you have too much money, you'll become an a-hole, and it's really a thing. Rich people are
Let's,
jerks. Not all
yeah,
rich people are jerks. I met some really nice rich people. You'd never know they were rich. I was at
yeah.
karaoke night, and I noticed it was a CEO of a company that I had personal knowledge of, and I'm looking at him like, this guy right next to me is probably worth 500 million bucks, and he's sitting there in like just kind of nothing spectacular, singing karaoke at this little bar down the street. I'm just like, whoa, like you would never know. And he's nice as can be, giving advice on like, getting over fear to sing karaoke. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's all about self-mastery, and that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Really, yet we get so tangled on the superficial purposes of things. And yeah, money is just another relationship. I was talking to one of my other clients, and yeah, she was taught that money is evil. So if you feel money is evil, and Dr. Joe Murphy talks about this too, then you will repel it. It will not come to you. If you feel you're going to become a bad person, then you're not going to be the rich person that you want, because it's a connotation and it's an energy that you put out. It's all about the energy you put out.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't think about these things. Like, I thought that was really cool to think about. If you withhold money and you're like, oh, I don't want to give it to that person,
Yeah.
I just don't, then how do you expect the universe to give that back to you? Because you're talking about the
Mm-hmm.
energy piece. Money is just a piece of paper. It's a green piece of paper, or
Or electronic
euro.
piece of energy, right? Or everybody can relate to probably taxes. How many people don't like paying taxes? That if you don't get a refund and all of a sudden, like, I think the most I ever owed in a year was like 10 grand or something. And I was just like, oh, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I was so abundant that I actually had to pay $10,000 in taxes. Mind blowing, right? So like, what if you could be excited about needing to pay?
See it
And yeah, totally different mindset. I do prefer to get a refund. No, but like, one of my business professors, they said what you want to do is you want to owe the government as much as you can every year without having to pay a penalty, because that's that much longer the money is working for you. Now that's also assuming that you're good with money and investments and things. If you're not, and you spend it all and then you owe the money anyway, now it's like causing stress. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, if you're able to owe the money as much as you possibly can and have the money working for you in a CD or investment vehicle or something else that's creating more for you, that's that's a smart use of leveraging debt and stuff like that,
yeah.
or taxes. Yeah. And so like, looking at relationships, it's the same thing. Like, every relationship, there's skilled and unskilled attributes for that relationship, and it can tell you a lot about yourself, because everything is a mirror to you. We're all one. Everything's a mirror to you. So every single relationship, even the clerk at the grocery store when you're checking out, there is something being reflected back to you, that if you want to be aware and really look at it, like, what can I learn here about me and who I choose to be, and what could I tweak to get me further along, like the highest evolution of what I came to be. So every relationship could potentially have value, some more relevant or weighted than others, but every relationship has the ability to show you a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. And this is why I spend so much time with clients on awareness and becoming the observer, because if you don't get to that level, you're going to miss all these opportunities. You're going to miss all this stuff that's coming to you. Once you get to that state, you can start noticing, oh, how interesting that this happened. How interesting. It's just, you start to notice, your mind just expands. And on the way of money, I just had a thought too, and Poof Magic Dragon is at work today. We don't have to work hard for money. How many times in your life has something just come to you? You got a free item. You got a check. The government forgot something and you got a check for. Did you work hard for that money? You didn't. You didn't do a damn thing. So how many times does that happen? So it proves to you that, I hope it's happened to at least everybody once or twice in their life, where
I had a huge example of that. I can't quite talk about it yet, but it was an unbelievable show of generosity for something that completely changed where we're at in our life, and financially and everything. So it was like, wow, this is really
it
amazing.
proves to you,
It happens all the time.
Hard for money. But we fixate on that. That's where the brain fixates. So that's the energy you give. And so that's what starts to get reflected to you.
And the question is the taxes thing related to asking forgiveness after rather than permission before? Laugh out loud. So like, it's better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. I don't know. Like, taxes everybody's in such a unique tax situation. But the idea is like how to use money, because money's a tool. Money is not abundance. Money is a tool. Abundance, I love the definition of Bashar, the ability to do what you want to do when you need to do it, right? So money's not in there. Money might be a vehicle to do those things, but it's not the only vehicle. So that's the other thing, just to let go of the idea that the only form of abundance is money. Abundance can come to you in the way of a relationship where someone says, you know what, I have this, I want to take you on this trip. Like whatever the case is, a group of friends going to Cancun. And, like there's tons of ways that abundance can express that have nothing to do with an actual exchange of dollar bills. So just letting go of that first and foremost. And here's the other thing with relationships. Relationships are their own thing. Like you have the two people, the energy between them is almost like a whole new entity being built back, not like a baby, but it's its own entity. And one of the people that I really respect from my youth, who is a spiritual mentor, one of his spiritual rules was in all things, put in more than you take out. And if both people do that and they're putting into the relationship more than they're taking out of the relationship, it just grows. And a great example of that is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. One drunk helps another drunk, and that drunk helps 10, and those drunks help 10, and those drunks help 10. And AA is this huge nonprofit juggernaut that just passes around a little basket, and just from 10 people throwing in a $1 bill is completely self-sufficient. Like mind-blowing, right? It's a huge organization. But if you were to, in every relationship, friends, relatives, romantic partners, anything else, put in more than you take out, and everybody did that, what planet would we be on right now? Same one, but like what would it look like?
We're working on it.
So and that's really the idea of, you look at the relationships as, I have an investment in this because we're all humans, we're all in this together, as opposed to I'm separate from this person and all I want to do is take from them. And now that relationship atrophies. And then where does that leave you? Like in that kind of scenario, if everybody's trying to take things out more than they put in, now feel the version of that planet. We're somewhere in between right now because we have a lot of change happening on the planet. And right now is the time that the more people that start to choose to put in more than they take out and be part of the kingdom of we instead of me, like that's really like what's going to change the world. One little relationship and interaction at a time. It's not on the macro level that's going to happen. It's going to happen on these little micro levels. And then it's going to have, wait for it, the ripple effect. That's Dr. K's business name. It's going to have this ripple effect, and it's just going to go and it's going to affect all these different people. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's not thinking about that. It's just in the moment doing what really serves you and your soul, which 9 times out of 10 or more, it's really to be of service, because you're being of service to yourself. If you recognize that, oh, that's you. You hurt someone, you're hurting yourself. You help someone, you're helping yourself, but not to do it for the purpose of benefiting yourself, just to do it because that's the nature of the soul. That's where the magic happens.
Totally. Mic drop. We're done. If you
okay
out of today, start thinking, and this is lofty. If you've not thought about this, most of our listeners here kind of they're on there. They kind of get that. But if you're listening and you've never listened before, or if you're new to this, I know this is going to be out there, but just process it a little bit. We all came from one space. Think about that. If people are like, where did you come from? Well, I came from my mom and my dad. Okay, where did they come from? Well, from their parents. Okay, where did they come from? If you trace that line, there is something greater than you. So you came from something great, and you are an energy. You're not this body. The body's just a tool. If we're all one, then take this piece out. Every time you curse somebody, you curse yourself. Every time you bless somebody, you bless yourself, and more comes to you. Every time you wish prosperity for somebody, prosperity comes to you. Every time you're jealous of somebody, you write the universe a check. So you do yourself, really. So one of the easiest ways to, not all, but one of the easiest ways to go broke is to continue to curse somebody, or not even, we're speaking on abundance, but to get disease, to go broke, to have troubles and tribulations in your life, is to continuously resent, curse, whatever, somebody else, another person, people, situations, companies. Love them. I always tell my clients, bless them and say whatever, just so it helps you a little bit. I bless them. I love you, whatever. Okay. So that you can feel good on both ends, but bless them. When you bless somebody else, the blessings start coming to you. When you constantly curse somebody, you get stuff happening in your life. Just watch.
And when you have those things come up, if you're in the energy of reacting, like take a pause and be like, what's this really about? And it may just be because, oh, you know what? It's not about what they did. I just feel hurt, or I just feel rejected. And all of a sudden, like I had this happen to me over the last week. I was around a huge bonfire. I was talking to somebody and like looking to connect a little bit more. And I definitely got a rejection, and it was just like, and it was fine. But I was like thinking about it, like, oh, because it was very clear a rejection, and it was like cool. And I then all of a sudden was able to put these other little pockets of things into perspective from my past. I'm like, oh, that's what that energy is. And it totally changed my whole point of view. So, like, from these little itty bitty things that can happen between you and another person, uh, it can have this ripple effect about your own thought about yourself that all of a sudden elevates the space that you were operating from. And it's kind of like now you have the view of the condor, and you're like, oh, all this makes sense. I can see the big picture of this now, because one little thing can just change it all. So it's really your relationship with yourself is what is being refined through all these interactions. That's the purpose of relationship, is refining for each of us, and it's all interplaying. And it's like using everything as a tool to be like, cool, what's that tell me about me? I just got really angry and I flicked somebody off. Cool. What's that tell me about me? and like turning it back on you, because if you're focused on them, it's a deflection. Whatever they did or didn't do, it's affecting how you are relating to them and choosing to act. And all that stuff's an inside job.
So well said. So well said. That is exactly what's happening. That is another mic drop for what.
Another mic drop. How many mic drops can we have? Max will be angry if I mic drop, because it's like attached to his desk. I'd have to rip it off and throw it on the ground. Because I'm using he has such a nice area set up for streaming, so I'm taking advantage of it.
Point well said. But that is exactly what it is. It's mirroring to you for you to start looking in at yourself. If you have chaos in your life, if you have a lot of people around you that are toxic, that are pushing your buttons, then look at where and what it's teaching you. Are you in victimhood? Because if you feel like a victim, you will be treated like one. I hate to say it. That's just the energetic point. And maybe that's not going to be well taken for people. But if you feel like life, everything's just, people are always picking on me, where are you sending out that energy that you are not strong enough? You are all powerful, powerful beings. You are the architect of your life. You create your life. And you have to be meticulous with your thoughts and what you are projecting. And if you carry the energy of my life sucks, everything, then watch how things around you are going to suck. It's just, I don't know how else to say that. You have to really, that's where the work is.
I'm not sure if I froze or you froze. That's where the work is. It's the last thing I heard.
And I froze. Yeah. So that's where the self-optimization is. And that's where it's all about self-mastery. Like we talk about a lot of times, Hank talks about contrast. If we didn't have contrast, if you ate the same piece of chocolate cake every single day, and we all walked around here with the same outfits, the same food daily, then we would not learn. The soul comes down here to learn lessons. And sometimes there's downs in life and sometimes there's ups. And so we learn to appreciate everything. But when you can become the observer, then you are much more detached and you're not entangled and you can learn easier.
Absolutely. And what questions do you guys have? I see some, Anita was saying fact. Mike said it's never about the present, but it's always about the present. It's kind of both. It's like the present can recapitulate all of your reality around you, the future and the past, all from the present with how you relate to it. Mic drop from YouTube, Mike says. Yeah, but let us know what questions or what things are coming up for you, where we could take this.
What relationships are you struggling with? There's a lot of people struggling with relationships because it's kind of
doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. It could be one with your kids, And I think for me, like sometimes I struggled. Well, let's see, what do I struggle with the most? The fun-in-laws. Yeah, but you know what? I see myself in both of them. So the reason I struggle with some relationships is there's aspects of me that I don't want to fully acknowledge about myself. And then it's just like, oh. Or I also can recognize, it would help me to recognize that, you know what, I'm mirroring to them exactly what they need to see. And I'm just going to enjoy my evil little self around them and play my little part, but also recognize, what I'm noticing in them, I do myself.
So if somebody's triggering you, making you upset, making you sad, that's the piece you need to look at within yourself. The why around that. And what work do you need to do around that? So you become less reactive. What is it? And sometimes, I don't know how many, in a lot of cases, I would say it's a lot of self-sabotage, anger at self, because somewhere you don't feel perfect. You don't feel, you project that on other people. A lot of
Froze. Come back, Dr. K. You're back?
I'm back. I don't know. Today is just a weird tech day.
How's your relationship with technology here?
I don't have a good relationship. I will fully admit I have not a good relationship with technology at all. I'm working on that.
Yeah. Oh, what were you saying though? Like, if you want to repeat it.
That was it. Just looking at what is it showing you about you? What is the relation? If you're struggling with a relationship of chaos, if there's a lot of toxic, now at some points also it is showing you something about you, but at the same time, we're not saying stay in a relationship where there's a lot of toxicity, because it is a very, there's so many layers to this that we're trying to teach in the layered form. But
Yeah.
there are people that are, maybe you have become a very good person. And usually when you change your vibration, you start changing yourself, those people start falling away. They stop calling you. They stop hanging out with you. When I was going through my relationship, my 17-year-long relationship, and I started really working on myself, and I stopped trying to chase and change and be out there. And I turned inward, and I'm like, this is my internal work. This has nothing to dawned on me. I'm like, oh, this has nothing to do with them. This has everything to do with me and the changes I need to make. People started falling away because my vibration started getting higher as I started to do more energy work and changing my internal energy. People around you, they just stop calling. It's just bizarre. Or some people want to hang out with you more. But if you're in a toxic environment, then by all means, we are not saying, oh, stay there and spend more time with them so you can learn more. People are in their own stuff right now, very much. And if you've been on Facebook, you've seen what's been going on over the past couple of days. There's a lot of division. And if people only knew the energy they put out when they say things like, I'm so glad that happened, he deserves it. If you only knew the boomerang you are sending out when you do that, that is not, just stay neutral. Doesn't matter. Just don't send
This
out.
is a very interesting series of events. I'm very curious to see how it unfolds, and I'm going to send love and light to all involved. Is a great position to be in. In fact, that's kind of what we did. We heard the news while we were at a festival, and the person who told us might have been happy. And us as a group, we were just like, this is a really interesting series of events, and that was it. And let me explain how this may work for people too, like in terms of this, what it stirs inside. It's kind of like there's a certain frequency, there's a gradient, there's actual Hertz frequencies for all the emotions and everything. And somebody does something that's a particular frequency and it's resonating something inside. So what you're perceiving is just the agitating event. But if you sit with it, oh, that's the energy of insecurity. So the agitating event's just drawing you to the place to look at, and then you get to dive in, well, where have I been insecure, or whatever the theme of the energy is, and that's what to look at. But oftentimes that original imprint, we're protecting it. We don't want to feel it. We have been taught, especially men, it's not okay to feel.
Yes.
And what you really need to do when those things are agitated is, okay, where is this in my body? Okay, it's here. What is this? And I'm going to let myself feel it. But if all of a sudden I'm reacting and I'm blaming and I'm saying this person, that SOB did this and that and the other thing, now all of a sudden I am all in my head and I'm not actually feeling that emotion of what's coming up for me. And so, like, look at everything. If it is creating something, like, where is it in your body? Allow yourself to fully feel it. Ryan used to say, you're unable to heal what you're unwilling to fully feel. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like, they really got it. The only way out is through, and it's in being fully in it and just let yourself rip and roar and cry. And somebody asked, is toxic a gradient? How do I recognize it? So defining toxic, I don't know if I've ever taken the time to really identify what toxic is. What is a toxic relationship? How would we define a toxic person or toxicity?
I think the first thing you need to look at, that's a very interesting question, is, again, is this person mirroring something to you? But if this person is, you are evolving. So if you're doing self work and you're around a person that is consistently really badgering you, like we're talking abuse, physical, mental, emotional, that is toxicity. So if the person just will not lay off, and it could be a family member, it could be a spouse, there's a whole narcissistic, topic to talk about. If it's so consistent that it's bombarding you, then I would say that's what I would label it.
Yeah, and it is a gradient, because there is something people don't talk a lot about, but there's totally toxic positivity and there's toxic negativity. They're both there. And like toxic positivity would be someone that only wants to look at the light, which like you don't, not to say that you just need to acknowledge both sides. But as someone that says there is only good, but from the duality standpoint, I'm not talking about like the greater scheme of things. They may not be willing to look at certain parts of their life because, oh, it's only light and love. So I'm not willing to feel that insecurity that's coming up because I'm not acknowledging it. And so toxicity of either extreme, I think, would be to the point where, or it's like so bad that I'm going to change all my behavior to avoid that. I'm going to stop being me because the toxicity is so bad. I don't want to trigger this person. That's how I would define it. Just feeling it out would be on either extreme, positive or negative, something so great that it creates a space where you are unwilling to look at and continue to do your own work. Like that's like the extreme parts. And then as it lessens, like you could be in a toxic situation and navigate through it, as long as certain conditions. I think there's a lot of moving parts with that, but that's kind of how I'm starting to formulate my definition of toxic relationships, is like giving up, not being able to fully be you because you have to tailor yourself so much that you can't be you at the expense of somebody else not being them.
Yeah, I like that. And I think for me, what I'm hearing is just, I would have to hear the individual situation, because I think that is very individualized, because I think some people will say, well, I'm around this toxic person. But when I start talking to them, it's like, is it you, like you, Hank, you mentioned, is it you not standing in your own power and not doing your own self-work and using that person as an excuse to say, I can't, or I'm not doing my work, or yeah. So
yeah, it's not worth it. If I do this, the repercussions are so great that I'm just not going to choose this. But that also could be okay in certain circumstances. So it really is, it's so individualized, because sometimes there might be a relationship that maybe right now there's so much healing work to do that it's creating a lot, and that might feel toxic, but there's just 20 years worth of work being done, and it's not fun for anyone. And so that's the other part of it. It's like toxicity. And I really have to sit with this question. We may have to do a whole episode on what is toxic.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really, you definitely, it when you're in it. Sometimes you're like, whoa, this is definitely, is the plant going to die because the soil is being changed so much? But, or is the plant still able to grow? Like if I'm starting to use it as a metaphor, like that would be toxicity is when the plant is atrophying. If you're able to still grow, then it may not be ideal, but I don't know. I got to think about it. What are your guys' thoughts? You guys can contribute. Like, what do you feel toxic is in relationships?
We have to. Yeah. The thing that comes to mind to me, though, is when a relationship has become so toxic. Again, I really think it's showing an environment, the relationships. It's showing you maybe it's time for you to make a change, because that's what I'm seeing so much of. There's so much pressure. I just worked with somebody else the other day that it is affecting this individual's health, because the things that have been going on are toxic. They are emotionally very toxic. They're very heavy. They're very dark. The other person and their family, that it is showing the other person, it's very clear, like, it's time for you to move out of this. When are you going to start really working on yourself? When are you going to stop and really start working on yourself? So that was that individual situation. But I think it is we'd have to maybe hear the story, but I guess we'll do something generalized to help.
Well, and when it comes to relationships like that too, like one thing is like has somebody gained everything that could be gained? Like so if you're in a toxic relationship and it's showing you things, have you acknowledged everything that's being reflected back to you? So like because some people might jump ship or change something because you get so close to a wound that's so big that you don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
And though it may be toxic, it might also be, wow, this is bringing up something that's so big for me that I want to flight instead of fight to look at it because I don't want to look at it. I'd rather leave and avoid it. But guess what? The universe is going to create a set of circumstances where you have a new person in your life reflecting it back to you. So like so depending on what it is, like if some relationships, if you leave them, if you haven't changed the fundamental thing that drew that circumstance to you in the first place, you may find yourself right back experiencing it again. And that's why like Neil Donald Walsh, I think he said that I think he's been married like 4 or 5 times, I forget. But he said he married the same woman like 4 times and had the same freaking patterns again and again and again and again. So like have you done the work? Have you done the work before you choose to change things? Have you reaped everything out of that you could? Or are you avoiding something by wanting to make a change? How many people move cities and move across the country all because they need the change, but then they create the same life again? Because the buck stops here.
You can't run away from it.
Now we had Penny contribute that she said toxic is anything that one person allows someone to do to another person to them, regardless of what it is. I'm going to read that again. I'll put it up. That way everybody can read it. Toxic is anything that one person allows someone to do to another person to do them regardless of what it is. Have to sit with that too. Or I might be missing a word. It's not clicking for me. Toxic is anything that one person allows someone to do to another person. Do them regardless of what it is. Oh, so that's like a victim. Anything that you allow someone to happen to you instead of through you. I'm kind of generalizing it. So toxic is anything that you are allowed to disempower yourself instead of empower yourself. We could have as a very more umbrella definition. I like that.
Out of it. It's a victimhood. So don't be the victim.
Oh, so if something goes against your beliefs, just giving some clarity. Yeah. And then Amber's offering. So now people are offering their opinions. Okay. So I think toxicity is relative. One person's poison is another person's medicine. 100%, which is one reason we get in such trouble as a species, because you see one person, it works this way for this person. And of course, it should work that way for me. But no, like one thing that's toxic to one person might be medicine for 99 other people. It's only their own personal poison. And so you have to make everything individual to oneself. The goose isn't good for the gander. I think that's an old saying.
I don't know that one.
I don't know.
But yeah, but that's true. We're circling back. It is all individualized on the situation. Obviously, I think physical abuse, again, you're a victim and you're tolerating something. So how long are you going to tolerate it? And where is it time for you now to pull up your power? And there's people that will sit in these spaces for years and years and years. But it's the lesson that you're being taught to start pulling up your bootstraps and start becoming a different person.
I like that. Pull up your power. Yeah. Pull up your power. And then that might be, well, where have you given away your power in the past? Like I know Paramedes process is great for that, all the times and all the ways you gave away your power, or whatever they would say, because a lot of the stuff is pre-verbal. And as a child, there might be a lot of power over instead of power with, and that type of thing. And diving in and really finding it, because you don't want to recreate that abuse scenario. So like where if you are in a scenario like that where you are experiencing abuse, what from your past have you aligned and agreed with? Where have you been a belief thief to come to the awareness that this is what I feel a relationship is and I deserve it, or whatever? Or maybe your parents had an abusive relationship and that's the only relationship model that you had, and that's what you created, and you didn't know there was other ones. And then maybe the solution for that is hanging around with people who have healthy relationships and getting a taste of, wow, it doesn't need to be this way. Maybe it's as simple as that. And then all of a sudden you can have a whole different experience around relationships.
It's intricate. This isn't a black and white. Here's the answer. Go with it. Here's the formula. Go for it. Some things have formulas, some things don't. So it's about finding things and evolving and expanding. So.
Very good. What other questions, guys? You are on a roll. People coming up with a few things for us to kind of talk about. Let us know what else is on your mind about the purpose. Well, toxicity is what we're talking about right now, but the purpose of relationships in general. And
yeah, what do you guys think the purpose of relationships is? And what relationships are you struggling with that you're like, it is just not resolving? Maybe you want to share that, maybe you don't, but maybe you want to ask yourself that question.
You could also email to hank@sonicshama.com, and we can make sure to not say who you are.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah, which I really need to get an online form set up for that, so people we can always put like have a private question, click here, fill out a form, submit it anonymously. That will always
and
be,
we can
be fun.
talk about it or help you. We're here to help you evolve from those spaces.
Yeah.
Relationships are changing, the frameworks, the boxes we've been put in on marriage and what a relationship should be these days. It's just very different. And it's just, I keep saying, it's just, we need a version 5.0 because the times are not what they were 100 years ago. And if we're trying to use that same model for today's day, which we are, and we're just constantly breaking those down because they're just not working so well.
Yeah. And Amber was saying she thinks all relationships are teachers, not just romantic ones. We started with that too. Like relationships, it's not just even people. It's also relationships with entities like the church, for example, or the government, for example, IRS, or any organization like that. But then also friendships and colleagues, like workplace things have an entirely different thing, especially between you and a boss, because now there's a power dynamic that is at play as well, and where you may have to like do things that like sell optional credit protection plan coverage, and that like they'll go against things. So like every relationship with anything outside of yourself can be a teacher, including life itself. You have a relationship with life. You have a relationship if you have a disability. You have a relationship with disability. I took a workshop at the festival last week where they talked about somebody's spouse had a disability, and all of a sudden they needed a wheelchair, or they had a lot less mobility, and they realized that with themselves, that disability had become a partner. And so when you start looking at that, and you have a relationship with actual like life things that are happening to you, like unemployment. If you're unemployed, there's a relationship with unemployment and who you identify with as a person in your career. So it's way more abstract than just people, places, and things. It's also like things that come up in your life. You have a relationship to those things, and like work using those for the purpose of which they're intended, which is for you to refine your unique voice in this world, for you to find out who you are or who you aren't, and make more steps to elevate to the highest possible level who you came to be on the soul walk. Because it's always a never ending. You're never going to get there and be like, oh, because it's a moving target. As you grow, guess what? The height to which you can go also grows. So there's no end game. It's only a constant evolution.
It's like the video game Mario. You finished level 5. You're not done because there's level 6.
I'm sorry. Our princess is in another castle.
Right? Yeah, I know. I love that game.
Just keep going.
Very short. You're friends with somebody and all of a sudden you're not friends with them anymore. So sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. They all serve a purpose.
Yeah. And Penny offered the purpose of relationship is to get a deeper meaning of oneself, 100%. And there's a lot of answers to this. There's no right or wrong or best answer or whatnot. So 100%, it's to get like really to have a spotlight pointing inward to the parts of yourself that you don't remember about or don't know about. All those things are little spotlights if you let them be. Or you could be like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm just going to react and I'm going to stay where I'm at, which is also fine. The universe will give you another opportunity and another opportunity. And eventually you might go, maybe I do want to look at it.
I always just say, thank God is patient, because we're like, I had to look down and be like, I'm done.
It's like, that's a hot mess.
So I don't know what else. What other questions people have? Thoughts, things, side items that you
Or
want
other topics you want us to dive into. For sure, we're going to do a whole thing, maybe not next week, but we'll do a whole thing on toxicity. I think that would be a good one. Narcissists, that type of thing.
Yeah,
All
I've
has
learned
really
there
good
are
stuff.
passive narcissists. And that's
Yeah.
interesting. I did not know that, but
There's what of narcissists?
passive narcissists.
Oh,
There's
yeah. There's covert narcissists. There's a whole smorgasbord of narcissistic fun.
so you don't have to think of, we think of I always thought of a narcissist as somebody that's really egotistical, right in your face, and just
No, they
they.
can be sneaky too. They
Mhm.
can. They can be. And people can be narcissistic in certain areas of life, not be a full narcissist, but have narcissistic traits. So, like, even if someone in your life, it may not be a textbook narcissist, there might be a certain area where they are very narcissistic. And so, it's really good to educate yourself, because recognizing that and then dealing with that is a huge thing. Huge thing.
Yeah, that's probably going to be wrapped up in the toxic
Yeah.
conversation, toxicity conversation.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
of
if
those
there's
at
no
the bottom of the
questions,
barrel, yeah, those people are trying to heal themselves. They're just not doing it in the most optimal way.
well, and who's to say what's the most optimal? If there are shit
We don't.
stirs, and maybe that has benefit. I've been in situations where there might be a lot of narcissistic stuff around, and maybe it just took that level of stuff happening to finally go, whoa, I need to make a change around something. And so there could be value to it. But that's the thing, like everything that shows up, like Bashar says, in life is neutral. You get to assign its meaning. And if you want to put the blame on somebody else because they're doing this to me and this to me and this to me, I'm disempowering myself, disempowering myself, disempowering myself, instead of saying, wow, I respect and love myself so much that I'm going to start making choices that I'm not going to experience this anymore. And now it's not like you're faulting them. It's just like, this no longer serves me. I'm going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to start making choices that really serve and nurture not just your soul, because you are more than your soul, but my mind and my emotions and my body. We're all these things. And so, like, it's really about taking care of the whole thing and recognizing all of it, and not just like, the emotional part, because we do have tendencies. We have our favorites that we like to work on: body, mind, soul, all that. Like, but really, like, how does this particular situation apply all the way down the line? Mm-hmm.
The internet's having problems today. Apparently, this conversation is not well accepted somewhere. I don't know,
What?
but
Oh, did you freeze again? I didn't even notice. I'm
I
sorry.
think I did, or one of us did. Yeah, and I
That's
had
all.
thoughts around that. Just really becoming more in awareness of things, and what is this trying to show me? What am I trying? What here do I need to learn? Because it's not a black and white. This is this and this. It's very gray. There's a lot of gradients to all of this. So becoming an awareness and really moving through in a different way than you have been.
Very good. Just a last call for questions. And Dr. K and I both see clients virtually, and I see clients in person too, but I think Dr. K is just
I'm
virtually
all
right now.
virtual.
But if there's links to our websites in the little video description, so if you need anything, you can click through and schedule whatever you need, and we're happy to help you out. And let's see. Last call for questions or anything else you got. I'll give you this for money. I thought about this way long ago. It's out of place now, but nothing else is coming up. Anytime you spend money or receive money, hold your credit card in your hand, your debit card if it's digital, and just, this is a little saying from the Rishi's Metaphysical Institute. God bless this money or source. If you have a problem with the G word, use whatever word you need to use. God bless this money, multiply it, increase it 1,000 times 1,000 for the service of the light. Bless the ones who gave it, and bless the ones to whom it shall go. I get thanks, I get thanks, I get thanks. Because for everything you spend money on, whether it's your electric bill, you're giving $5 to your kids for lunch, whatever the case is, being in that space, that knowing that I'm programming this money to be a service to the light, blessing them, blessing it's all about, no matter what you're spending money on, being a blessing with that money and being a service. And that is a wonderful thing. So do that anytime you receive or give money. It may just change your life. And we had Penny say she has learned that her biggest lesson I have learned my biggest lesson with a narcissist. There you go. So just like those toxic situations, the biggest lessons can come from them. Just reap as much as you can before making big changes, because you don't want to recreate a whole new situation because you didn't want to look at that one little nugget that was really causing. So, but then in relationship, what brought me here? What brought me to this place where I'm in this dynamic with this person? And what do I need to look at about that could, one, maybe allow, if you change that, maybe everything with that person changes, and all of a sudden, there's a shift and it's no longer toxic. In Access, they had this this acronym ELF. It means evil little f, right? And they said when someone's being a real piece of work, you can say, wow, they're just an elf. And it's kind of like the idea that you don't blame a fox for eating a chicken. That's a fox. That's what they do. If you acknowledge a person for being how they are, to being their authentic self, all of a sudden your resistance to how they're showing up goes away. And they can step into a whole new different place. And the example that they gave in Access, when a person used this tool, that person that was just such a piece of work to be around in the office place, all of a sudden were pleasant. Because they surrendered that this is who that person is. Cool, I'm not trying to change them. Their entire experience around them shifted because they weren't in resistance to it anymore. So really looking at that stuff, it could change, or you might get to the point where, hey, yeah, I do need to adios myself and exit stage left.
Yeah, so stay in enough to do your best to learn the lesson, because I think the other thing that may happen is you get so frustrated because you don't want to look at your own internal lesson in it, and you leave, and then the whole thing just repeats all over again. The next, like Neil Dalawash, you just marry the same person over and over and over again until the light bulb
goes off, and you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. I need to actually change. Otherwise, you like attracts like, and you can do all the mental gymnastics in the world and have conceptual knowing of how this stuff works. But like actually getting it on a being level, that's where like attracts like. Otherwise, you're really vibrating here. You know better, and you're saying you want to attract this, but the opposite shows up. No, you're just attracting like attracts like. You haven't actually changed. Mentally, you want this, but your whole rest of you hasn't caught up with that yet. And that's where can you bring yourself into congruency to actually attract that's why they say whatever you want in a lover or a relationship, are you getting that from you? And if you're not, then maybe you need to do some work on you so that you actually have those qualities expressed within yourself, because you're all everything, but expressed within yourself, so that now there's a resonance between you and the relationships outside of you that allow those things to come and experience it with another person. Anyway, see.
Perfect. Yeah. And sometimes it takes time to just stop getting into other relationships and do the self-work yourself. Because if you keep getting into relationships and it's the same thing over and over, then it's time to do some internal work.
Yeah. How many people have ever really been alone? I have known one person. I know several people that they go from relationship to relationship to relationship, maybe didn't even ever live on their own. Like technically I've never lived on my own, but my wife goes to Germany for months at a time sometimes. So I get this wonderful, just me, myself, and my soul time, that like sometimes like the greatest things need to come when you are just you by yourself. Take that time. If you're in relationship, when do you get to go on vacation with you? And really just sit with you, yourself, and your soul. All the greatest masters, Christ, Buddhas, things like that, they went on these little things like 40 days in the desert, just me, myself, and my soul, and all the stuff comes up. Because there's no one there for you to be distracted by. And comes up.
Are you able to be alone with your thoughts for a whole week?
Ooh. Yeah. Sometimes people don't even last stuff. There's this 10-day silent meditation retreat in, I think, Chicago. My friend Upendra had gone to it, and the only talking there is every night at midnight, where they go at the over the loudspeaker, this is the end of the first day, and everybody's like, oh, and like people are dropping like flies after day 3 because they just can't handle like this being in silence that long. And there's still other people, but like it's still like just not speaking and interacting. It creates a space where the boulders really get heaved up, and you get to look at them.
Yeah. Do you notice like when you're talking to somebody and a very grounded person can say something and then they'll just be quiet, but the discomfort is like I got to say something, like it's too silent. Do you notice we often just can't sit with somebody with silence. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. But silence is where, and I'm not saying sit in silence with somebody, but silence
Why
is
not?
where you can. Yeah, you can too.
Try it.
But silence is where the answers are. So if you can't be alone with your thoughts for a period of time and it's that uncomfortable, what is your relationship with yourself that you don't want to look at?
Yeah. And Amber said she actually moved to New Zealand. You've been to New Zealand? Oh, I want to go to New Zealand. That is one of my bucket lists. My friend John, who's visiting now from Europe, I haven't seen him in a couple of years, and they're visiting with their twin kids. It's like kind of cool having kids in the house and they're crawling around. It's crazy. But anyway, he went to New Zealand for like a year or over a year, and it was a phenomenal place, like just breathtaking in terms of beauty, and not nearly as many things that can kill you like in Australia. Like Australia, you got to like be careful around anything. There's like a bazillion things poisonous that are gonna take you out. And Amber says silence can become an addiction too.
Yes.
I spend a lot of time alone and in silence, and that's they talk about this a little bit in Alice Bailey's work, where like they have the monk that's in the cave and has all this great awareness, but like they're not being a contribution. And so like they in a sense, even though they might be getting great enrichment from it, they're not being a service and contributing to the whole. So there's kind of an energetic atrophy that could happen. I'm not saying it always does, but like that could be, a place where now all of a sudden I have no tools to interact with somebody else. And the silence becomes, like Amber said, like an addiction or something that you need to survive, or you think you do. And then that can be a negative. Everything is a gradient of skilled and unskilled application. And it's like really like where do you need to bring more centering in your life in different areas? Yeah, she says 0 things kill you in New Zealand. I thought it was 0, but I didn't want to say there is not a single deadly species. Lots of falling dust though. Yeah. Yeah, but like no snakes or whatever's. Spiders. Oh my gosh. Like my friend Brian had almost lost his leg because he got bit by some, I don't even know what, but he had to go to the hospital and stuff. And yeah, this kind of crazy. Anyway, so we're over an hour now. Thank you, everyone. No. Any final thought, Dr. K?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of golden nuggets that you guys can take away from this.
Yeah, there's been a lot of mic drops. I'm gonna have to get a new mic for Max. No, but check out the links in the website or in the video description if you want to connect with me or Dr. K, or send us messages, or there's certain topics you want to see. But I guess that's it. Until next time, we will see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.